What is going on, YouTube people? Northeast Ohio Sports Cards here today for a little NBA playoff talk slash market thoughts slash recap slash what are card prices doing based off playoff performances stuff. So, NBA playoffs plus card market equals this video. That's what we're going to dive into today. So, before we dive in, like, comment, subscribe, YouTube stuff down below. You guys and girls know the drill, links, all that stuff. Let's talk some basketball. Let's just kind of take a general playoff take really quick, set the scene for this. First off, I am recording this before Thursday's night's games. So I do not know the fate of the Lakers or the Trailblazers at this point in time. Personally, I think the Lakers are toast. Whether it's Phoenix that takes them out or they lose in the next series, there's no way they're making it out of the West. Not with AD hobbled. KCP's hurt. LeBron looks human. That could all change tonight. I could be eating these words. You could be laughing at me as you're watching this video Friday morning as AD toughed out a game and LeBron looked like, 2007 LeBron or something crazy. But regardless, I don't have a lot of faith in the Lakers. I think Denver ends up taking out Portland. I don't know if it's tonight or maybe it's in a game 7. And I see the Suns honestly beating whoever gets through there. I think both those teams are flawed. And the Suns are playing really good basketball right now with Chris Paul healthy. Chris Paul health being the obvious key there. I think the Clippers are going to continue to clipper, and Dallas takes that one. Once again, whether it's in 6 or 7, we'll see. It would be nice for them to close that out in 6 and be done with it and not have to play a game 7. But Luka is freaking amazing. That being said, I think the Jazz handle them, and I think it's ultimately a Utah-Phoenix Western Conference Finals, and I really think that goes anyone's way. The only wrinkle to this is, and I have not yet seen the results, was Conley's hamstring injury could cause some problems for them. Maybe it gives the Clippers or the Mavericks a chance. Let's just call it the Mavericks. But ultimately, I think Utah takes that series. But it could be a good one. Luka making the Western Conference Finals would be a ton of fun. So I think we ultimately end up with the Jazz and the Suns, and then it'll probably just depend on health at that point in time. How does CP3 look? How does Conley look? Does anything else happen between now and then? But that is my current prediction for at least Western Conference Finals. The Eastern Conference side, the biggest thing is the Embiid injury. I think they're toast. He could play. I think it's pretty stupid if he plays, quite honestly. And I think the Hawks beat them. Especially if he's hobbled or if they just don't have him. Maybe the Sixers got it out, but I will put my money and my mouth on the Hawks and Trae Young in the Western Conference Finals. And the most interesting series of the entire playoffs, Bucks, Nets, probably your NBA champion, in my opinion. Whoever wins this series, probably going to win it all. Once again, health being the ultimate factor. I'm going to stick with the Bucks on this one. I think the Nets have some flaws, and I think the Bucks can give them problems. We'll see. I could be drastically wrong on this one. Regardless, I think this is going to be absolutely spectacular series to watch. So I am super excited for that one, which I believe game 1 is Saturday night. And like I said, whoever I think comes out of that series is your ultimate NBA champion, to be quite honest with you. So I'm going to go Hawks, Bucks in the East, Jazz, Suns in the West, and then we will reevaluate for predictions. And I do think, once again, you guys and girls know already, I am assuming that the Lakers lost tonight. Could be wrong, but we'll see. Let's dig into some charts and graphs. Overall, it's still kind of a bloodbath. I'm just going to be straight honest with you. Especially where it's a bloodbath is still the higher end stuff. And we'll get into it. But your $1,000 plus cards are still taking a beating. Even guys that are moving on. Your under $1,000 cards for guys that have been playing well are holding steady or slightly going up for the most part. We'll get into the specifics here in a minute, but just kind of being general. Let's start with Dame. I did not talk about Dame last week, and there's no denying what he did this week. Now, Once again, I'm recording this prior to Thursday's games, so I don't know what he has done already by the time you guys are watching this. I frankly think that they're going to lose that series. It may not have been last night, but I think they lose in 7 if the Nuggets don't even it up. With that being said, if you had Lillard, I think your window to sell was yesterday, as in Thursday, like prior to last night's game. So if you still have him, I think you should be selling. Unless you believe in Lillard long term, which in that case would be him getting traded or something like that. I just don't know how he ever wins a title with that team. He's insanely good. He's one of the most fun players to watch. But I don't want to say he's stuck on Portland, but Portland just kind of is what it is. I just don't know how they ever get over the hump. Maybe they retool with a bunch of big offseason maneuvers, but I just don't know how much you could bring in for like a CJ McCollum or something like that. I don't know that Lillard would demand a trade. He seems to really like it there. That would be the only way his stuff gets a massive spike, in my opinion. On the week, he got a 22% bump with that absolutely insane game. But I don't think this holds. If they get bounced or have already gotten bounced by the time you're watching this, next week I could easily see this being right back down to where it was, if not lower. Time will tell. Let's move along here because I got a lot of stuff I want to talk about. Tatum. Tatum's an interesting one. Tatum was dipping, then spiked back up, and he is everyone's darling. Everyone you talk to, myself included, all that they can talk about is buying a Tatum dip after they get eliminated from the playoffs. So this is 7 days worth of charts. I kind of bounced around a little bit on some of these players, so I'll try to point that out. In general, he is still up, and his stuff has basically stayed flat even though he's been eliminated. His base optic is up 17%. His base prism is up 5%. Concourse down 5%. Premier, only one has sold. It's a very low pop card. There's only 220 of them. Stayed flat at $440. Only one sold, so can't get movement on that. We'll see what this looks like next week at this time, or maybe even by Sunday in the weekly wrap up. But yeah, his stuff has maintained basically, even though he has been eliminated, because he is all everyone can talk about. Justifiably so. He really looked like he went next level in the playoffs. And I'm right there with everybody else. I will absolutely buy a Tatum dip if it happens. I am wondering if it still happens, but it takes longer because of all the hype currently around him. We may have to wait a couple weeks for people to kind of forget about him and move on to the next thing. It will happen at some point in time. Looking at his more lower pop stuff, I pulled up his 2017 Prism Silver and the green, which is just dead sexy. Both PSA 10. I had to go 2 weeks here because only 2 greens have sold in the last 2 weeks, and it stayed dead flat. It was at $2,600 about 2 weeks ago, and one sold this week for $2,600. So basically a 0% change. The silver is down slightly, but it has been a couple days since one sold. 6-1 was the last time one sold for just under 2K, a very small 10% drop. This is one of the rare instances where the green outsells the silver, and it's fairly obvious why. Jersey match. I know some people do not get or do not like the fact that the jersey match fetches more. I think it's a gorgeous looking card. I would love to have one. If I was going to buy a Tatum dip, this would be the first card that I would look at depending on your price point. If not, then really, to me, anything is good of his base cards depending on your price point. There's kind of like a smorgasbord of options here. You want his optic if you're entry level, or his select concourse. Do you want something higher end? You could go with his prism or his prism base. Do you want actual high end? You could go with his green or silver, or the silvers of all the various or hollows of these various base cards. The reason why I say that is, and I do feel like this has gotten lost in all the noise of get rid of all your base cards, get rid of all your base cards, get rid of all your base cards. Here's the thing to keep in mind. And I know I've mentioned this before, but 2018 Prism, 2019 Prism, and most likely 2020 Prism, so Luka, Zion, LaMelo, are printed astronomically more than 2017. Luka's pop count is almost 1,800, 1,700. Zion's is almost 1,700. We won't know what LaMelo's is for a long time because of the PSA shenanigans. Tatum's PSA 10 Prism is only 5,000. That's a lot, but that's not that bad in the grand scheme of things. And I think when people are hearing this, get rid of all your Prism base, sure, but what year of Prism you're talking about matters, in my opinion. And his other stuff is much lower pop count as well. That kind of spreads out to the other stuff. Like his select stuff's pretty low, his optic stuff's pretty low. But in comparison to 1920, it's actually not that much different when you compare across years. So just something to keep in mind there. I think like him and Mitchell and some of the other guys going backwards have gotten kind of unfairly lumped in with the Zion and Luka, 17, 18K pop count stuff. So, and then once again, that card, nice looking card. Let's look at Ja, also recently released from the playoffs, if you will, the other night. I don't know that we have a full picture on this one because this just happened on Wednesday and I'm running these charts on Thursday. He is down slightly. This is his Prism base down 7% and his Prism Silver down 20% on the week. I expect to have a clearer picture of this come Sunday for the week, weekly wrap-up show. I could see him holding slightly better just because I think he kind of proved to a lot of people, oh, wait, he is actually really good. He had a really, really nice playoff run. That team is young, has cap space, I believe, and should get better next season. They had what I would consider an incomplete Jaren Jackson Jr., which is probably their second best player. Maybe with Joe Val, I guess you can kind of go back and forth there. But to me, Triple J has way more upside and is the better player overall. But he was hurt. And he looked very rusty and just did not look himself. So a full season of healthy Triple J, along with all the other guys kind of taking the next step, I think they're going to be a playoff team that you're going to need to deal with for a while. And like I said, Ja, to me, proved what I wanted to see out of him in regards to how he played. What I wanted was for them to get into the playoffs and him to show me what he could do. And they look pretty good. Sure, could he shoot threes a little bit better? Absolutely. But remember, this is his second year in the league. And he's essentially been in the playoffs twice now. He had the play-in game experience last year, play-in game experience this year, and now a full series while Zion's been sitting at home. And that stuff matters. So I do like the upside of Ja overall. I would happily buy a dip on him in the offseason if it happens. I don't know. His stuff may stay pretty flat. I don't know. His base Prism's already down to 267. Does this go sub $200? Who knows right now? RJ Barrett took a beating. Knicks gone from the playoffs. Not surprising. The Hawks were just a straight up better team. I am not a big RJ Barrett guy. I never have been. I know a lot of people are. His Silver Prism really took a hit this week, down 47% from 665 to 350. Yikes. And we'll see how low this continues to go. Once again, not a big RJ Barrett guy. He had a couple good moments in the playoffs, but if you compare his playoff run to Ja's, it's night and day difference in my opinion. I think he'll be a perfectly fine NBA player. I just don't know that he's ever going to be anything remotely close to all NBA. I don't know. We'll see. I think he's a perfectly fine NBA player, but I don't know that he's going to be a star in the league. Embiid, man, this sucks. I just hate when these guys get hurt in the playoffs. I just want to see good playoff games and good series, and I really hope he doesn't play. Him trying to play on a torn meniscus just seems like the stupidest thing ever. I know it's been done, but it was guards, smaller guys, not someone the size of Embiid. This just seems like it ends poorly if he tries it. We'll see what happens. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not a physical therapist. I'm not a doctor. I didn't sleep at a Holiday Inn last night, but this just seems like a bad idea. His prices took a little bit of a hit, 20% drop, down $150 from 675 to 528. I imagine those keep going because I don't, you know what I mean? I just don't have a lot of optimism for their playoff run with him being hobbled. There's no way they get past, if they get past the Hawks, and I don't think they get past the Hawks, to be honest. There's no way they get past the Nets or the Bucks. We'll see what happens. This is Ben Simmons' time to shine, I guess. And we finally get to see, He looked really good in a closeout game against the Wizards, but let's see how he looks against the Hawks. Can he shut Trae Young down? He's great defensively. It's all offensive questions with Simmons. So his stuff's down a lot too. I did not pull charts for him, but he did not have a great week price wise. People price in these guys getting eliminated from the playoffs before they're even eliminated. That happened last year, and it's being jacked up on steroids this year with the market movements, plus the normal downswing in the market that's going on right now. Is just a recipe for disaster on some of this stuff. Devin Booker, interestingly enough, and once again, this goes to, not everything's going up because guys are playing well. Like I said, in my opinion, the Suns knock off the Lakers Thursday night. You guys and girls know the results already. We'll see what happens. But his stuff was on a downward slide for the week. Overall, from 760 to 640, down 16%, $120 loss. You could see it dip down to 640, kind of spiked back up again with them beating the Lakers the other night, back up to 700, and then dipped back down again to 638. We're seeing a lot of this. This is going to be a pattern that we see repeated. They get a little bit of a spike from a good game, and then it drops right back down again. So if you're looking to sell these guys, you need to be ready. Lillard went off the other night. You should have been selling that night if you wanted to get off Lillard's stuff, because there's a decent possibility that's the highest it is for a while. But Booker trending down is interesting because I think they're as close to a shoe-in for the Western Conference Finals as you could get. He looked really good in that game. He's had a up and down series. Overall, he's been good, but he's had some stinkers, especially when CP3 was hobbled. Booker did not look his normal self when he had to carry the full load. So his running mate, though, has played exceptionally well. In my opinion, he's been one of the biggest winners in terms of how the NBA perceives him of the entire playoffs, and that's DeAndre Ayton. He has played absolutely fantastic. It might not necessarily show in the numbers, but he has been a beast defensively and has also looked pretty good offensively when he gets chances. They're not exactly straight running plays for him, but he has been really, really good. This is interesting price movement. I pulled his select, his prism, and his optic, both his selects. They're all very low pop count because just not a lot of his stuff got submitted. None of the selects actually sold in the 7-day period. Only the optic and the prism did, and the optic actually got a pretty big run up. It went up 37% to $70. Meanwhile, his prism stayed kind of flat at $80. That's semi-intriguing to me as a quick flip, maybe like a star stock play. That just seems cheap for him, under $100. But right now, a lot of things seem cheap. I'm not saying I'm going to run out and buy him. I probably won't. But it's just interesting to me. He's been playing extremely well, but it takes a lot for big guys to get love in the card market. Trae Young, probably the other biggest winner of how the NBA sees them, how the card market treats them, whatnot, however you want to frame it. He's looked fantastic. The Hawks have looked fantastic. His card prices are one of the few ones trending in the correct direction. And it's not necessarily everything, but this is his base optic, his base prism, and his two primary select cards. All of them are up, some more than others. Base optic, base prism up about 10 to 12%. Base selects up 6% and 4% respectively. And these are all over the last 7 days for his stuff. So I'll be curious to see how that keeps trending, especially if we find out that Embiid's not playing in the semis, or they rip off a couple wins and it looks like Trae Young's going to the Western Conference Finals all of a sudden. I think his stuff will continue to go up. His slightly more rare stuff, his Prism Silvers, PSA 10 and PSA 9, did not see as much movement. The PSA 10 actually stayed flat, and the PSA 9 went up just ever so slightly, up a whole $9, a 2% change. Once again, I'll be curious to see what this looks like as the week moves on, and also if they start peeling off wins against the 76ers and it looks like they're moving on to the next round. And once again, I kind of talked about this last Friday. These price movements, Trae plays well, pushes them on to the next round. Getting a 10 to 15% bump seems normal to me. That seems fine. Maybe I thought it would be a little bit more, but given the way things are right now, that seems perfectly fine to me. So once again, I think we're getting back to more normalcy in the card market versus the overreactionary stuff going bonkers, crazy overnight like we did, the previous year, basically. Let's look at Luka. Luka's been on a wild ride. Let's start with his silvers. This is his Optic Hollow, his Prism Silver, and his two Select Silvers. They're all actually slightly down, which is a little bit surprising. Hollow down 14%, Prism down 5%, the two Selects down 10% a piece on the silvers. But the pink line here, we'll focus on that one. It's had the most action because that's his Prism Silver. How many of those have sold? 24 have sold in the last week. Oh, I'm sorry, 2 weeks. I pulled 2 weeks worth of charts on this one. So you could see it was trending down. Then they win a couple games versus the Clippers. It goes up, peaked up at 6,500. They lost 2 games against the Clippers. It went down to 5,300. And then they won last night. So I only have 1 day's worth of data on this one. So I'll be curious to see what this looks like on Sunday. But from before that game, it was going for 5,300. After last night, they were going for 5,500 or close to it. I'll be curious to see if this keeps trending up between now and the Sunday morning video on how his prices kind of fall. But I've always loved Luka. He looks absolutely fantastic. The biggest thing holding Luka back is his team. Porzingis has really not played well and does not look like he's long for the Mavericks. I have a feeling he gets dealt in the offseason if they could get rid of him. But it's basically him and a bunch of role players. It reminds me of some of the early LeBron teams that he had with the Cavs, where it was like Damon Jones and Donyell Marshall and a washed-up Antoine Jameson. And who else was on those teams? A bunch of random dudes. I'm blank. Oh, Larry Hughes was the guy that I was thinking of. He has Tim Hardaway, Dorian Finney-Smith, Maxi Kleber, and Boban out there with, I don't want to say washed Porzingis, but Porzingis has not looked good in that series. But Luka's looked absolutely insane. If you don't like Luka long-term, I don't know what to tell you. He just looks so freaking good. His base stuff, also, once again, 7 days here. Over the last 7, trending down. Base Optic down 10%. Base Prism down 10%. Concourse took a beating, down 40%. Premier Level Select down 30%. I took a bath on this card. I'm down about $400 on this right now. I bought mine for $1,200 just a few weeks ago. So we'll be curious to see where these go. Once again, when I get to Sunday, does his stuff creep back up over the last few days, over Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, heading into the weekend, depending on what they do? We'll see. Obviously, if they win and eliminate him, I think he gets a little bit of a spike, but we'll find out. But he's looked absolutely fantastic. I will absolutely, if Luka would get eliminated and his stuff dips way down, I would absolutely be a buyer, especially on the more rare stuff as it gets semi-affordable. This stuff's still kind of expensive. Don't get me wrong, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 depending on your budget. But I am really intrigued by a Luka Optic Hollow PSA 10. I'm intrigued by a Silver Prism, maybe PSA 9, or maybe a Select Silver or something like that. We'll see where his stuff goes over the next few days. Let's get into some of the bigger boys, and some of this stuff has really gone down a lot. LeBron, we don't have a super recent sale on this one. This ended on 6/2. His Chrome is down to 17K, a 4K hit on the week. A PSA 9 has not sold since the 31st, so I don't have a real accurate number on what that's currently at. We'll see if any ends tonight. But I think this card's going to keep going. I made a community post the other day asking what people think the floor is on this card. I would be curious for your guys and girls' thoughts on that. What do you think the floor is on a LeBron Topps Chrome? Like I said, I think there's a good chance he's already out by the time you're watching this, or if not, that they're out by the end of the weekend. And I think this card continues to go down. And as someone that would like to get a PSA 9 of this card, I am just watching it fall. I think there's at some point in time, whether you're bullish on the market or not, this stuff's going to get too cheap and people are going to sweep in and start buying it up, especially LeBron stuff. It could be very low. Who knows? Maybe it's 10K. Maybe it's under 10K. Maybe it's 5K for a PSA 10. I have no idea. But whenever it hits the floor, there's going to be a good buying opportunity there. Maybe not necessarily as a short-term hold, but as a long-term hold. LeBron, other than Jordan, when it comes to NBA of the more modern guys, is the best long-term hold that there is, in my opinion. I'm talking like 90s and onward, Jordan and on, basically. It's Jordan, then LeBron, and then probably Kobe. Those are your three in regards to holds. But yeah, we'll see where the bottom is on this one. Keep falling, baby. Keep falling. Bottom out like right at the National, please. Depending on what prices do, one of my plans for the National is to keep my eyes peeled for a Topps Chrome PSA 9. But the way that they're going, I might be buying one before that if they get so low, and I think it's the floor. We'll see where that goes over the next few weeks. But I think it definitely keeps trending down. Leonard stuff taking a little bit of a hit, and I have to imagine it really tailed off the last day after the Luka beatdown last night. We'll see where this one goes, depending on how this weekend ends up. But on the week, he's down 13%, which is a $225 hit. This is his 2012 Prism base. I think this card continues to trend downward, and then it will be a very interesting Leonard decision this offseason with his opt-out clause. He has the ability to opt out. If they get bounced in the first round, I don't know how he stays there unless he just really likes to live in California. If he leaves, the rumors are the Knicks and the Heat as the two frontrunners for him. We'll see what happens. If he would go to the Knicks, I would have to imagine his cards see a major price spike. But that is rumor and innuendo at best. And once again, we don't really know what's going to happen. They could win this round, turn it around, win 2 in a row, and then, knock off the Jazz and move on. Who knows? Crazier things have happened, but Clipper's going to Clipper. Another very interesting one. KD Topps Chrome PSA 10 taking a beating. Started the week at 7,000, down to 5,100, a $2,000 drop in 7 days, a 28% dip in the last week. And this is a team that is moving on. This is market correction in full effect. This is another one. This is only pop 960. This is one that's going to get interesting at some point in time to sweep in and buy up. I don't know where it is. I don't know when it is, but it just keeps getting cheaper and cheaper. At some point in time, this game of chicken is going to end. And that's kind of what it is right now, is a game of chicken. Prices are falling. Somewhere, people are waiting to buy. And they're just letting the market come to them. And I think at some point in time, especially on stuff like this, people aren't going to run out and buy RJ Barrett Prism base. But there's there has to be groups of people just waiting for this stuff to bottom out, like KD Chromes, LeBron Chromes, maybe even Leonard stuff, whether it's base or even higher end. But his Chrome base PSA 10 is low pop, under 1,000. Not that many in the grand scheme of things. How low does that keep going? If I was a big KD guy, this would be interesting to me. We'll see what happens next series. If they get bounced by the Bucks, what does this get down to? We'll see. We shall see. Donovan Mitchell, another interesting one. Slightly going up, kinda. His select concourse up slightly, up 20%. His base prism staying flat, basically at down 3%. And his optic down about 9%. I bought both these cards before the playoffs, right before he got hurt, as I have mentioned a million times on the channel. I just recently bought more of these. I bought 3 Donovan Mitchell PSA 10s on Star Stock for $325 a piece. I think they make the Western Conference Finals at minimum, and I think they have a chance for the NBA Finals. And if that happens, I have to imagine this price goes up. I could be wrong. I probably will be wrong, but it is what it is. I made a play. We will see what happens. I already had Donovan Mitchell that I took a loss on, so I said, you know what? Let's go buy some more Donovan Mitchell and see what happens. This could potentially blow up in my face. So we will see what happens with him. And then last but not least, Giannis, his stuff continues to creep down. His select took a beating this week, down 20%. Base Prism down slightly to just sub 2K for the first time in ever. And his hoops down to 560 and continues to creep downwards. I think this is one where people don't think that they're going to get past the Nets. I'll be curious to see what prices do if they win a game or two. You know, if they start out 1-0 or 2-0 against the Nets, do his prices bounce back again? Giannis is another one I would absolutely love to buy a dip on if they get bounced, but we'll see what happens. So that's all I have for you guys and girls today. Sorry for the longer video, but there's just a lot to talk about. That's why I wanted to split this stuff out every Friday in its own little thing, because there's just so much happening. As the playoffs move on and the field gets smaller, maybe I'll stop doing that. But for at least the next couple weeks, I'm going to continue to do this every Friday, where we just kind of take a broad market approach to guys that are recently eliminated and or moving on in the playoffs. What prices are moving and shaking, etc., for the guys currently in the playoffs. But it's been clear at this point, the playoffs aren't necessarily going to save you unless you do something absolutely insane like Lillard did, or you're someone like Trae Young and you're kind of outperforming expectations and moving on to the next round. And now with hope with the Embiid injury that they can move on even further. To me, if you were going to buy the flip, I already made my play. I think it's Mitchell and I think it's Trae Young. I have not bought any Trae Young. I still have some Trae Young laying around, but I have not gone out and acquired more Trae Young. But I did go out and get more Donovan Mitchell because I do think that they have a clear shot to the NBA Finals now out of the West, or at least the Western Conference Finals at minimum. So we'll see what happens. I just figured for 325, his stuff's fairly low pop, even in base Prism. I picked up a base optic as well on Star Stock for 150. That seemed pretty cheap. Worst case scenario, if they would get bounced and his stuff would tank, I would probably just ride it out and see what happens at the beginning of next season, see if it bounces back or not, or if he demands a trade or whatever with all the shenanigans going on with his ankle injury from a couple weeks or from a week ago when he was quote unquote pissed off at the organization. So, but yeah, that's all I got for you guys and girls. Like, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube stuff down below. Catch you on the Sunday morning show. No video tomorrow on Saturday. I am heading to Card Collector to trade night on Friday night, so I will not be home to record anything. Catch you guys Sunday morning. Peace.